July 19. 64. The firing of Rome in the reign of Nero is placed by Vignals on the 19th July, the day also on which it was sacked by the Sannonian Gauls. See June 18. 1203. Fall of Constantinople to the Venetian Crusaders, when Isaac Angelus, feeble and blind, was solemnly reseated, with his son Alexius, upon the imperial throne. 1242. Battle of Tilburg, upon the Charente, in France. The French king, at the head of a vast and superior force, carried the bridge, and the English under Henry, the royal palmer, after a desperate stand, gave way, and were driven with rapidity to Sens. 1333. Edward III defeated the Scots at Haileydown with great slaughter, which defeat was followed by the surrender of Berwick, which Edward annexed to England. 1374. Francesco Petrarca, the celebrated Italian poet, died, aged 70. His talents and learning contributed greatly to the revival of literature, and he has been justly styled the father of modern poetry. 1573. John Caius, an English physician, died. He visited the most learned institutions in Europe to improve himself in his profession, and when he finally settled in London became extremely popular as a practitioner. He endowed a college, which bears his name. 1610. The foundation of the famed and valuable Bodleian Library was laid at Oxford. 1629. Quebec capitulated to the English under Louis and Thomas Kirth. This was 130 years before its final conquest by Wolfe. 1693. Battle of Landen, in which the Confederates were defeated by the French with great slaughter. 1701. The Confederated tribes of Indians surrendered to the English, at Albany, their beaver hunting country, lying between Lakes Ontario and Erie, to be by them defended for the said Confederated Indians, their heirs and successors forever. 1743. William Somerville, an English poet, died. On the completion of his education he settled on his paternal estate, became known as a magistrate and a country gentleman, and devoted his leisure to the muses. 1763. Nathaniel Hooke, an English historian, died. He is little known, except by his History of Rome, 4 volumes 4-2. 1777. Logan's Fort, Kentucky, besieged by 200 Indians. The garrison consisting of 16 men, who repelled the savages. 1779. Battle of Paulus Hook. The British garrison surprised and made prisoners by the Americans under General Lee. The commandant of the fort and a few Hessians escaped. 30 were killed and 161 taken. American loss 6 killed or wounded. 1783. Job Orton, an excellent English dissenting divine, died. Author of many valuable works, among which is a Life of Drive Doddridge. 1794. A revolution commenced at Geneva in Switzerland, headed by 2 commissioners of the French Revolution residing there. 1806. Action off Faroe Islands, between British frigate Blanche and French frigate Warrior, 50 guns, 317 men. The latter was captured in 45 minutes, with the loss of 26 killed, 30 wounded. British loss, 4 wounded. The Warrior was taken from the British by Captain Hull, in 1812. 1808. Battle of Bailén, in Spain. The French under Dupont defeated by the Spaniards. Dupont and 2,600 fell, after a desperate action from 3 o'clock in the morning till noon, When the French sued for terms, a convention was agreed upon, by which they were to lay down their arms, and be conveyed to France. Accordingly 14,000 soldiers defiled before the Spanish army, laid down their arms, and all their military accoutrements, and were conducted to Cadiz. The officers were sent home, but the soldiers were placed in hulks, where they remained some years, until the few that survived the miseries of their confinement, driven to despair, cut the cables of their prison ships, drifted out of the harbor, and were saved by their countrymen then besieging Cadiz. 1810. The King of Prussia issued a decree forbidding American vessels to enter his ports. 1812. Battle at the Bridge aux Canards. 150 volunteers under Colonel M. Arthur while reconnoitering fell into an ambush and were fired upon by a party of Indians. Under Tecumseh, the Indians were routed. 1812. United States brig Nautilus, 12 guns, captured by a squadron of British frigates. 1814. Action off Sandy Hook, between the United States privateer John Armstrong and British sloop Henrietta. The latter was captured, laden with stores for the fleet in Chesapeake Bay. 1814. Matthew Flinders, an English navigator, died. He explored a part of the coast of New Holland, but lost his ship in that enterprise, and on his return home, was held a captive in the Isle of France 6 years, and deprived of his papers. 1824. Augustin Iturbide, Emperor of Mexico, shot. He entered the army at a very early age. In 1820 he took up arms for the cause of freedom, and led his army on to a series of splendid victories. He became suddenly popular, and was raised to the throne, but was as suddenly deposed and banished. His execution was occasioned by his return. 1836. Lefebvre de Chevreuse, Archbishop of Bordeaux, died. He came to America after the French Revolution, and was consecrated first Catholic Bishop of Boston. 1810. He was a man of distinguished talents, and extensive scientific and literary acquirements. He returned to France at the invitation of Louis XVIII. 1848. Robert Swartwout died, Quartermaster General on the War of 1812, and afterwards known as a politician. 1849. Harmanus Bleecker, a prominent and universally respected citizen of Albany, died, aged 70. He was Minister for the United States at The Hague for several years. 1849. George Tibbets of Troy, well known in the councils and commerce of the state of New York, died. 1849. The excavation for the passage of the double track of the Utica and Schenectady Railway through the rock at Little Falls, Herkimer County, New York, was completed. 30,000 yards of granite were taken out and 1,600 kegs of powder consumed in the operation. 1853. The Danish Parliament was prorogued, and a fundamental law issued, by which the government became an absolute one. 1854. The insurrection at Madrid C-17 triumphed, and the Rivas ministry resigned. 1855. Joseph L. Folsom, first collector of the customs at San Francisco, died, aged 38. He was educated at West Point, and after serving in Florida, went to California with a New York regiment in 1847. He was reputed the richest man in California. 1857. A fire broke out in Taifa, Portugal, which spread over an immense district of agricultural country, consuming a vast quantity of standing grain, country houses, barns, etc.